Hey guys, welcome back to Screenworthy, brought to you by The Mind Refinery. I'm your host, Kyle Bodanis. This episode, we're wrapping up the clusterfuck that was 2020, looking back on the important shows that we watched while taking a look at some of the anticipated releases for 2021. If you like what you hear, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and if you have time, follow The Mind Refinery on social media. And now, on with the show. Alright guys, here today to do the Screenworthy year-end introspective are Mind Refinery creatives, Boyanetic.
Hello. Happy New Year.
And John Neal.
What's up?
What up, Playboys? Okay, so 2020 was a certified dumpster fire, and if you think an angry mob storming the Capitol building in the U.S. is bad as well, then 2021 isn't going much better. But we're hoping that at least in the entertainment realm, that isn't the case. Because if we are anything, it's frivolous. So I kind of want to have a discussion here, about some of the most important shows this year. What was our thoughts as media consumers, as content consumers? Let's dive right into it here. What was the big idea behind shows with the pandemic? Like when the pandemic happened, what were you guys looking for in content? Was it escapism? Was it you're trying to catch up? Like, why don't you start us off, Boyan?
I'd like to think of it as the equivalent of curling up into a ball and covering up yourself with a blanket and rocking back and forth was my ethos of pandemic watching of media, basically. So sure, I made room for new shows, and some of them entered that comfort safe zone, but it started a lot with going back to classic shows that I've seen 100 times over, whether it was The Office or Scrubs or Firefly. It started off with that, and then
getting that nerd comfort food.
I mean,
it's so good.
I almost started Battlestar Galactica, but that would have not been good for my health.
It wasn't Ebola.
Yeah. And then as things, I don't know, as you get used to everything being on fire around you, I started off with the other comfort food for me, which is, going into sci-fi. So anything sci-fi that came out or even close to related was on my list. I mean, if it wasn't The Mandalorian, then it was Star Wars. I mean, I actually, not Star Wars. Yeah. Other Star Wars shows, but Star Trek, Discovery, I mean, that was a thing that I saw, and then it kept me sane somewhat. And I know John's gonna hate me for all time for saying that. But yeah, it's just anything sci-fi worked for me. I mean, Lovecraft was another thing that was just blew me away. I mean, it had its issues, but it was incredible. And yeah, and then when things petered down a bit, I mean, I started to explore other shows that were great.
I watched a lot of food-related content, especially the first 5 months, I would say, from March up until July. When we started getting into the summer months and we could sort of be comfortable eating outside at restaurants, I did that a lot, as much as I could before the weather started to get a little cooler. But from April till, I don't know, maybe June, it was just pretty much food-related content on Netflix. Somebody Feed Phil, The Chef Show. I was rewatching Ugly Delicious, and then I was just catching up on stuff that I missed. I didn't really do a whole lot of rewatching old stuff, but you got to sprinkle in some Office and some Seinfeld here and there, right? Just because they're The Office and they're Seinfeld, but
those shows you can just throw on.
You just throw on and just have them in the background,
just like a random episode. You don't need to be ramping up to them.
No.
Yeah,
just the odd little sprinkle there,
I think, for me, I think it was one, supplanting sports was a big thing.
Yeah,
I was super. I mean, which we're gonna get into the event of supplanting sports until it came back, until the bubbles started this year, The Last Dance, which we'll get to. I mean, for me, it was first okay. So I was leaning on the Clone Wars and catching up with Clone Wars, and I rewatched also the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, which was awesome. Dipped into Rebels finally.
Same.
And really fucking had fun enjoying that. It was like total escapism. I was definitely though like hardcore about using the opportunity to actually catch up on stuff. Like I rewatched The Watchmen and stuff like that as well, which was just like feels more prescient these days as well. So I mean that was really good. I mean, like Samantha, my fiance, was like, we were like at dinner, we'll throw on Seinfeld, we'll throw on, she was watching Parks and Rec, so I love I'm like, I'll fucking sit and watch all this shit. Obviously it's friggin' fantastic. And then I was also trying to like gauge when The Simpsons actually started turning shitty. Like that was my whole thing. I was like, I'm gonna watch and figure out when this actually gets bad. And I kind of realized it's like season 11.
You should have done some science. You should have like charted it episode by episode.
Yeah. I'm just like testing my blood.
Reddit.
Yeah, I'm just like testing my blood pressure. It's like season 2 blood pressure. It's like fucking like 95 over 60. Season 12 191 over fucking 1,000 because it's terrible. So yeah, I mean it was good. I was definitely looking for some comfort food and stuff like that as well with this. A lot of food television as well because we were in the process of doing the last episode of Plated, so I was kind of in that headspace. Let's talk about some of our favorite or what we feel is most important. I mean, we have a list of what we've done here. Family, the listener, is we've each done what our top 5 most important shows was, that we kind of put it together in a list. There was a lot of overlap as we thought there would be, so we put together a list. We're gonna put out that list on social media. It's gonna be coming out through this podcast. You're gonna be hearing it. But first, let's start with honorable mentions. Didn't make our list, but the things that were really we liked anyways, and that were like great hangs.
I mean the individual honorable mentions is what you're.
Yeah, like what series, like what for you, other than like outside of our list, you thought was really good.
It's really good. I mean, The Good Place. It's rare that a show can end on a good note. And I'm sorry, not just end on a good note, but like just do a really good job of concluding a whole series that doesn't leave people pissed off. And it was already, it was very good, very well, acclaimed series going in, and it was just, yeah, that was a big one. I definitely, did the classic thing where I just watched it beginning to end in like 2 days or something, or
that show's a good hang. Like it makes you feel good watching.
So many good performances. I mean, I can watch Kristen Bell.
Stewart. Yeah, Kristen Bell is fantastic. Also, Ted Danson is fantastic.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, Ted Danson. I'm just like, I'll take all Ted Danson all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was just gonna say, like, I'll jump in, I guess. The Queen, I really liked season 4. I actually skipped season 3 and watched season 4 when it came out, and then went back and watched season 3 after I saw season 4. The thing I like about The Queen, and I'm not really much for like royal family drama, just generally speaking. I don't watch royal marriages. I don't really follow too much on a day-to-day basis. But the thing I like about the show is the acting is really, really good in that show. And that's because they have a number of notable people playing some of those key parts. Olivia Colman plays the Queen. She's been doing it since season 3.
She's talented as fuck.
And well, she's an Academy Award winning actress. She's really good. Also, Charles Dance is in it, and Helena Bonham Carter also plays Princess Margaret as well in season 3 and season 4. And I forget his name, but he's the guy that plays one of the Tullys in Game of Thrones. The guy that they lock up. Is it Edmund Tully?
Edmund Tully's the one.
He plays Ed Muir. That's it, in Game of Thrones. He plays Prince Philip in season 3 and season 4 as well. So that show is
he can give the proper level of buffoonishness to be Prince Philip, who is one of the all-time buffoons.
It's Tobias Menzies.
That's it. Yeah. And also just like the way that show is shot, the cinematography is really, really good. And it's actually a really interesting historical show. They've most of the stuff that happens in it is real and pretty accurate to what actually happened. So I also just love how in season 4 the whole Prince Charles and Camilla thing sort of comes out, and I'm sure that the royal family thought that they put that matter to bed, only to have it relived for them in this acclaimed Netflix show that is now introducing all of the younger generations to their drama. So I'm sure they're really happy about that.
Yeah, it's fantastic for them. The show's, I mean, I will say, like, one of the best, the first season of that show was one of the, like, it was mind-blowing in terms as a period piece. I can never remember the name of the gentleman who played King George VI. He's Winona Ryder's boss in Mr. Deeds.
Yeah, from
Longfellow Deeds and the bad boy of tennis, John McEnroe. He's fantastic.
I don't remember his name.
The whole season was fantastic, and then like season 4 is really, I haven't caught up to it yet, but like, I mean, the reviews on it, the talk about it, just in terms of it being a relevant show, another boon for Netflix, of course, who had a really good year.
Jared Harris, by the way, is that actor's name.
Jared Harris.
Just looked him up. Shout out Jared Harris.
He's he's a fantastic actor. He was in Mad Men as well.
Chernobyl as well, I believe.
Chernobyl, yeah, that's correct. He was in Chernobyl was fantastic. I mean, for me, one of them was Industry on HBO. It was super well done. Basically, it looks at this woman named Harper Stern, and she's from New York. She's a black woman from New York who goes into this pool of young people working in like the finance industry and looking for permanent positions at this one prestigious firm in London, despite like she just lies about having ever gone to school for finance. So it's like Suits, but actually really good. They don't pay me anymore, so it doesn't matter. It really kind of looks at the world of finance and like what the social mores are at the top of the finance world, and like the ruthlessness and the like they preach the lack of like moral like scruples, you know what I mean? And there's also the running gag on it whenever they talk about anything left-leaning politics. They're all like, they make fun of it because they're all in the finance world, so they're like hyper capitalist. It was really fucking good, and I thought it was an important show. I would compare it to, it's like the setup for Grey's Anatomy almost, except it's not like 16 seasons of the most like fucking contrived show I've ever seen in my life. So like it was really good and really edgy, and it was really well put together, and it's like thoroughly modern. So I thought that was really good. Season 2 of The Boys was awesome.
Yeah, that was on my honorable mentions. That's my go-to show when I'm looking for blood and violence now to satisfy that urge, because season 2 I think they must have doubled the budget on that show because
they did. I did a couple days on the first season, and that show was big then, and it appears to be bigger now, but it's like so well put together. It's so enjoyable.
They really
probably the best show coming out of Toronto now, or one of them.
Oh well, I think it's probably the best Amazon original that they've produced so far. I'm trying to think another show that's really caught my eye like that one. The real selling point for me is the villain with Homelander is just one of the best antagonists I've seen in a long time, and it's like the dark side of superheroes. So it's one of the more realistic things, like as far as superheroes go. It's
totally how they would act.
Yeah,
can I also just add about Homelander? So it's really easy to just make him pure evil, and he is pure evil. But there's if this is spoilers for anyone, I mean, it's already too late. We're talking about the past year. Catch up. The whole like Storm, what's her name? Storm something.
Oh, Stormfront.
Stormfront, like the Stormfront being just blatantly Nazi in front of him, and then him just having this moment of like, that's the line for him somehow. Like there's a line, there exists a line for him, and then like to give somebody that evil, that sort of third dimensional aspect where they could so easily be just pure evil and psychopath, which again he still manages to be, but has this line that he won't cross, and almost reminds me of that old Joker comic where, you know, Joker has the same thing where he won't work with Red Skull because he's a patriot. I thought that was a really interesting aspect to his character, that there are lines that he doesn't want to cross.
Yeah,
despite being a psych.
No, it's perfect because he's like, it's like he's Homelander. He's the patriotic American. Who do Americans hate the most? It's like the British and Nazis.
Yeah.
So like but then all of a sudden they just act blatantly like it. I thought it was kind of cool. Like it was really cool. I like Homelander's interesting. The whole show is very entertaining, but also not lowest common denominator. You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
they
Like,
managed to give most of the characters a lot of layers, and there's a lot of interesting backstory specifically to the organization as well, and its history. And I kind of like how they sort of tied it together to the Nazis as well.
That was really sick.
Which is kind of cool. You know, I mean, you can see even some of the parallels with some American organizations after World War II as well, that brought some of these scientists over here to work on a number of government projects. Obviously, like Werner von Braun with NASA and like a bunch of other projects and stuff like that. But shout out Anthony Starr for Homelander, just because I think he's one of the he's one of the best villains right now in all of TV.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys saw this show. It's called The Good Lord Bird. It was on Showtime, and it was created by Ethan Hawke, and he plays John Brown, who is the famous abolitionist who stages the attack at Harper's Ferry, ends up losing, getting put down by Mr. Robert E. Lee himself, and hung. But he was like one of the precursors, like one of the big inciting incidents leading up to the Civil War in terms of understanding that the only way you're going to deal with slavery is through like violent conflict. And so it was Ethan Hawke and Mark Richards. They put it together. So Hawke was friggin' sick in it, and it's actually produced by Jason Blum as well. So it's like part of the Blumhouse television initiative, because like they've been pushing more like to make the brand get into streaming, because I mean, especially that's where the real money is right now. And it was just so well done and so poignant, given like what, you know, obviously like what's going on in the world right now, and just like the understanding of like inevitable conflict and like the idea of righteousness, but it's like a caricature of John Brown. So he's like very confused and addled, and like always saying we have to attack things, and like it was just like really, really good. I would recommend anybody who, you know, is especially into historical fiction and you know, period pieces this year were really good. This one I think is one of the best, and you know, we're gonna talk about two of the other best ones as we go along. So I mean, I would definitely recommend that one as well. You know, like check it out. Did any of you guys have any more like honorable mentions to throw in?
The only other one I can think of now that we're talking about Showtime was actually the Belushi documentary that came out this year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I actually really liked how they incorporated animation into that, and how they just kind of made it all sort of fit without, and they did all these interviews without actually showing anybody on camera. It was mostly archival footage, photographs, and the animation that they did for it. I know you're a big fan of John Belushi, Kyle, so I thought I'd just throw that out there, because it was very, very well done.
The hero of every funny pudgy guy ever. Let's move on to, you know, the big and important shows of the year. Let's get into what are, you know, our 5 most important shows of the year. Why were they important? Why did they strike a chord? Let's start with the upstart of the year, the second most streamed show on Netflix behind Tiger King. Extrapolate your own opinion of society there, but Queen's Gambit, absolutely fantastic. What do we think, guys? Why was this show able to strike a chord?
I didn't think I would find a show about chess fascinating like I did, but I did. Queen's Gambit is just, I mean, it's a one-off series. Like, it's a limited series, and it's just fucking great. The acting is phenomenal. The cinematography is top shelf. There are like brilliant moments between all the characters in this show. The mentor that she has for one of my favorite moments in the show is how she has this connection to the janitor of the orphanage, and how he teaches her about chess. And I just, it deals with also a lot of interesting subjects like addiction and also just like, you know, feeding kids drugs and how it becomes like a problem, but it also helps her become better at chess. I don't know. It was just a fascinating series that I also read that it, like, the showrunner was trying to get it made for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, the book came out in 83.
Yeah,
like, it's fucking old.
It's old, and it's just really fucking good. Like, it's just a top shelf show, just a top shelf series. I don't know how else to describe it. It just hit all the right beats that it needed to hit.
I mean, like any great show, it's a number of elements kind of coming together. I mean, Anna Taylor-Joy was fucking mesmerizing. Like, every moment she's on the screen, she's hypnotic. The camera fucking loves her. She committed herself fully to it. She got like a chess instructor to do it, which is funny because, like, I think one of the good things about this show is, like, you don't have to know anything about chess to like it, right? It's more like amusing on like things like addiction, ambition is a big one, and obsession. So like she wanted to be authentic, just I guess from a character and emotive standpoint, and it worked really well. And she wanted to understand it. I mean, like, she's a star now. She's gonna be hugely in demand. I mean, she was already super talented. She was in season 5 of PE Blinders. She was fantastic, but she's only like 24. Like, it was a ridiculous performance. All the craft elements are ridiculous, like wardrobe and production design. You know,
and
like,
lighting. I mean, the cinematography.
The cinematography was absolutely fantastic.
And I do want to say it wasn't only her that was sort of the authenticity of the chess was. I watched it with a couple of people and talked to a couple of people who are into chess, and like the filmmakers also made sure that like you have a little bit of an additional sort of bonus understanding to what's happening if you understand chess, which is, again, I don't, so I didn't experience that, but for the people that did, it was an extra little topping on the cake.
Yeah, and I mean, I like, again, the cinematography is absolutely fantastic. Again, wardrobe. I would liken it in terms of its skillfulness to something like Mad Men or like Good Night and Good Luck, which was also absolutely fantastic, just in the way it dealt with period piece. But you know what, John? Like, remember we talked about the 25th anniversary of Casino and kind of the way they shot the like the floor of the like casino and like creating that larger scale Las Vegas like image. I thought they did something similar with that, where they weren't trying to make it compressed. It was like these large sweeping photos in wide shot, where it's like not afraid to show the entire like the production design. It really showed it off, and it was really good. I like it's fucking just so well put together.
Yeah.
What do you? I mean, and then also like Scott Frank and like Alan Scott, like Scott Frank did fucking wrote Logan, so and you know, Alan Scott, I think, did Shallow Grave. I know he did The Witches. I mean, this guy's fucking nominated for BAFTAs as well. They did a great job. Like, what do you think its contribution to television in 2020 will be? Boy, and how will you remember this series?
I'm gonna remember it. I mean, it's, to me, and I think what caught on a little bit is that every moment of it has a level of sort of like a mystery and you know, unexpected directions in the story, unexpected directions in the character. So it was between the writer, director, and so there was Anna Taylor-Joy who really stole that performance. It was a character that I can't really find too many equivalents to, and it was a masterful sort of performance of it. And I mean, if you notice just from the shooting of it, it's also focused on her. Like, you know, as soon as I try and think about the show, it's always very focused on her, and everything is in sort of relation to her, or everything is an extension of her. But the other characters manage to also be sort of interesting in their own ways. I don't know. I mean, it feels trite to say that, you know, it was. What you take away from it is that it was a really well-made female-led show, but I mean, there's plenty of those, and more of those coming, and that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that it's possible and doable. But you know, hopefully it touches on a bigger trend amongst the people that control the money and what gets made and who makes it, that there shouldn't be any fear or mistrust about if people are actually going to watch a show with a female lead. If it
just
goes
has to
to
be
like
good.
if it's good, if it's well written, if it's well made, and you find a good actor, it's gonna be fine, and people are gonna watch it. I mean, look at the numbers of it. Like you said, it was the second most watched show of that year, and I think it's one of their top most watched shows of all time. And if that isn't enough proof, I don't know what is.
Driving the limited series narrative home further as well.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have, you're gonna.
I do have some qualms though with how Netflix does their. I mean, it's one thing to order a limited series, but they've also started to apply that to shows that really could go on and should go on, and then they cut them off. And it's a lot of those shows that got cut off were up and coming filmmakers who hadn't had something quite as big or hadn't been the lead of something that should have gotten a further show, especially when everybody wanted to watch it, or it would have evolved into something bigger.
This is really coming down to contract negotiation, is like what this kind of thing is, because like if you're doing 3 years of a show or like 4 years of a show, this is another reason why they like a lot of they have to, for a series that keeps going, they eventually have to renegotiate an opening contract, and if it goes that long, it's successful, so then they have to like it's going to end up greatly increasing the production costs. It's unfortunate, because you're right. There's some situations where you're like, let's keep this going. I don't think this is one of them, but I think that is definitely the counter to. But I also think that this is where the industry is going. More limited series, because it's like it's really the perfect situation, because you get more time. Like the longer someone is in the Netflix ecosystem, the longer they're looking at other shows and realizing how much value the app has, right? So a feature gets you a 2-hour hit for an exorbitant amount of money. I mean, like in some cases, or in some cases the movie is fucking 4 hours long, like Martin Scorsese's, and you get that hit, and then but like a multiple season series, like all of a sudden you start getting into like costs as people start negotiating for fucking more cash. So like the limited series is like the sweet spot. It's like limited commitment, but at the same time, I'm completely down with the limited series. I just always want to make sure, like what you're saying, that it's not necessarily coming at the expense of longer series. But at the same time, I mean, like this is what the BBC did for years, and it's smart. Just being flexible about it. One or two seasons. Yeah.
Flexibility is the important part, because I mean, there's so many BBC and so many British shows where like, oh my god, this is so good, this needs to go along. And I guess I come from like North America, where shows will go on for 8 to 12 seasons, and you come to expect that. So when you watch some British TV, you're like, why is this 2 seasons long? It is so good. So I get that, and I get the appeal of it. And I think there's a sort of leave them wanting aspect. There's a sort of
that's the thing too, like
art house aspect. We're like, oh, this is a limited, it's like this thing, and it's going to stand on its own, and it's we're not going to drive it into the ground by going 6 seasons.
I think you hit it with the North American thing though, because like, okay, under any circumstances you would want to leave them. Like if you gave them 2 seasons of something and then they were like, this is the fucking best ever, we want more, and you never gave it to them, technically you wrote almost a perfect situation. Yeah. Right? So like, I mean, what's your thoughts on that, John? Do you get frustrated by that, or like, how are you with limited series?
I love limited series. I'm still a big film guy, even if it's in the theater or if it's on Netflix. But something like The Queen's Gambit is this is when I think of a perfect, amazing limited series. This is like the kind of show that I think about. It's probably one of the best things that Netflix has ever produced, because it's one of the most binge watchable things I've ever seen on their platform.
Yeah, I lit up 4 episodes the first time.
Me and Lindy sat and watched the whole fucking thing. Like, as soon as it started, it was over. 7 hours later, it ended, and we were like, did we just watch that entire thing? And it was like, yeah, we did, because, it's fucking great. When I think of binge watchable shows, this is one of the first things that comes to mind when I think about the binge. This is what Netflix is built for. It's built for this exact reason, for you to sit there and just go on these watching sprees. And a limited series is perfect because, once the 6-7 hours is over on a Sunday when you have nothing else to do, that's the series. It's over. Let's move on to the next one, right? Like, that's kind of what they want. So Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest takeaway, I think, from this is that it's one of the most binge watchable shows I've ever seen. It's also one of the most amazing shows that Netflix has ever produced. I could not have been happier with the story and with just with everyone involved with it.
Yeah, and you bring up a point, and I there was something that happened this year in terms of what you're talking about binge watching. When was it Mandalorian or no, it was The Boys. So when The Boys did episodic release instead of
Right.
all at once, there was a big outcry about it. People got pissed. I like binge watching shows, but I'm starting to like the episodic release a little bit more. There's a little bit more time to you leave a little bit frustrated and you want more, and that's a very sort of greedy, gluttonous way of watching things. But you have more time to sort of digest it. You have more time to talk about it with friends, and that part of the switch from episodic to binge is sort of the cultural change of, with the speed of the internet and everything, is like you're instantly talking about it with your friends and with other people and with strangers online about what you just saw, and if you didn't watch all the show, then somebody might spoil it for you, and that's kind of part of the drive, part of the change culturally when it comes from binge watching. But I do like a little bit of the episodic. I do like having some time in between the episodes. It worked out. I mean, we know Disney does it because they don't have any other content far, and they want you to keep paying until they have other content. So they did it with Mandalorian. That was not a creative choice. That was a financial choice. But I think actually, I want streaming services to have a mix of shows that are binge and a mix of shows that are episodic, because then you always have something to watch, and it's okay to have different pacing. And I think we've talked about before in earlier episodes of the podcast, is that shows that are written to be binge are written in a certain way, and that could be good or bad in the sense where they're written expecting that you're going to watch the next, they don't have to leave you on a cliffhanger or something like that.
Well,
so
I also feel
diversity.
that
I want diversity, and I want in those formats, and I hope to see more of that.
I also like looking forward to something that's coming out that I haven't seen yet.
Event television is awesome.
So
there's something good about it, yeah.
But I agree, boy, and I think there needs to be that balance, because I don't want to sit and binge like an entire season 1 of, let's say, like a 12 episode show that's like hour-long episodes, just because I do like to take a break, but it depends on the series, right?
It really depends on the series. Like Game of Thrones, like I wouldn't, like, as much as I hated waiting for them, there was something awesome about, like, we would all hang out and watch Game of Thrones and wait for it. Like, that's the kind of shit. And I was doing that for Mandalorian. I was like staying up till like 3 in the morning just to watch it.
Even with The Boys, right? With The Boys, it was the same thing. I couldn't wait to see the finale episode.
Yeah, the only sad part is we couldn't like get around, like get together and watch it together. Which is, by the way, Amazon. I hate praising Amazon for anything, but their service just added a watch together option, so like a watch party where you can there's also a chat function, but you can basically, anybody who has Amazon Prime, you can add to a list, and you can watch a thing together at the same time. And I
smart.
That's really smart, and oh god, that should have existed earlier. I mean, there's a website called Watch Together where you used to be able to, and there was another option that kind of forced Netflix to do the same thing, but like Netflix shut that down, and Watch Together only works with YouTube. But I want to see more of those options. I mean, even if the pandemic were to end today and then COVID were to just disappear, it would still be a cool thing, because not everybody has the time to always go to a friend's place. And sometimes it's nice to watch something like that.
Okay, guys, I gotta jump in. We are going long on this. We gotta move on. It's such a good show. We could talk about it forever. And also, these are the given what's going on in the world, these are the important conversations. Do you like to binge watch, or do you like event television? The Mandalorian. I mean, if we're talking about comfort food, then I would say for us, the restoration of the Star Wars IP is the ultimate comfort food. Because when Star Wars is good, it's magical, even when you're an adult. And when it's bad, it's like the Toronto Maple Leafs of franchises sometimes, because it's just depression.
It's abusive.
It's an abusive relationship. Not to trivialize abusive relationships.
No.
However, it's abusive. So let's talk about how important was the restoration of that IP, just from a higher cultural level.
I mean, it's like a tectonic shift in Star Wars when they course corrected it this season. And I have been bashing the sequel trilogy. I have been against everything that they've done up until this season. This was the turning point, at least for me. And we talked about this on our other podcast, but I couldn't believe how much I fell in love with this series and how much I cared about everything that they were doing after it, like up until the finale, obviously. But like, yeah, shout out to Favreau, to Filoni, to Rodriguez, to everybody involved, to all the directors that brought Star Wars back from the abyss. Even if it was for just this season, even if it sucks going forward, I'll at least have the 8 episodes this season that I can just go back to and just hug and just remember how wonderful it was near the tail end of 2020.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I double everything you said there, and but I want to say in a more general sort of Star Wars universe and Star Wars entertainment as a business sense, what I think Mandalorian did for Disney, whether they probably know, but you know, they have too many people, they pay a lot of people, so they're probably aware of this, but I think Star Wars was at a sort of middle point where, you know, they were reaching a saturation point. Things were not going, I mean, they were making money, but things were going sort of downhill a little bit, and they were planning so much more and more content, and it easily could have been another disappointment on top of other disappointments that would have led to the decline of that as a universe, right? It would have just been smaller and smaller and less. But with the success of the show and just the success of recapturing what Star Wars is and having a sort of a creative like soul again to it in Filoni and Favreau and the directors that are involved, that are also going to be making other shows. It's allowed them to be like, when they release that lineup of future shows, you know, all of us who are cautious and anxious about anything else Star Wars coming out and possibly being shit, we were like, oh, this could be good because Mandalorian was good. Like, it just changed your outlook of the future for Star Wars, because hey, you know, if they could do this, maybe they've learned something from it, and maybe Boba will be good. Maybe was it Rogue Squadron? God, you're gonna have to remind me. Maybe that could be good. You know, even the ones you think are bad, at the back of your mind, you're like, maybe it would surprise me. Maybe that droid show could actually be hilarious.
Like,
and
we've seen something good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's there and the people are there. For me, it's just kind of, it's a great way to end the year in terms of like having something that means to, you know, a lot to a lot of people being good, and just its effect on the industry. I am only worried about, I mean, we went through, you know, on the Mandalorian season 2 podcast, like what we thought was going to be interesting coming up out of the big, you know, announcement of releases. But I mean, I'm just hoping it doesn't enter that saturation point. But some of the series, like, they legitimately look good, and it kind of makes the overall, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're making Star Wars content and it's good and you're employing people at the same time, like this, like, it's a win. That's why you want it to be good. Like, there's a lot of good things when they're like on it, you know what I mean? When they're working in a good click.
Yeah. Like, I think when it comes to Star Wars, at least as far as like the broader picture and what the fan base and like sort of where we're at with Star Wars at this point, we've always been sort of chasing the feeling that we had when we first saw the original trilogy, the way that it made us feel when we were kids. And honestly, up until this season, we really didn't have that feeling. Like it just wasn't there for decades. even with the prequels, even with the sequels. They just managed to respect the source material of the originals and of everything that was sort of established in the George Lucas era of Star Wars. And they managed to build on it while still respecting it and incorporating all of these characters into this series seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I say seamlessly, I mean holy fuck, it's actually happening. Like, this is actually amazing.
And it doesn't feel like a cheap, like, tacked on, oh, we're just going to throw this guy in for this reference or whatever. It feels substantial every time one of these characters came back.
Yes. And it felt earned as well. Like, even like the Boba Fett thing, I know we talked about how on the other podcast, how I had a couple friends that were like asking me, like, wasn't he dead and all this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, but you know, the way, and who knows, in the Boba Fett series, they may actually go into that a bit more, and I actually kind of hope they do touch on how he escaped the Sarlacc. I know we talked about how he did in Legends, but I kind of hope that they expand on that more, and I think there's room to go into those details. But the Ahsoka Tano episode in particular was the one that really was the thing that just made it soar for me.
Yeah.
When I saw that episode, it became very clear what the plan was moving forward, and I'm like, okay, Favreau is going to do what he did with Marvel. He's going to pull an Iron Man. He's going to try and bring all of this together and do it respectfully. And I see all kinds of opportunities and cool situations that are popping up here that we're able to explore. And also, Ahsoka Tano is an incredible character. So the fact that they brought her into this, and then Boba Fett, the following episode, Billy Burr got an amazing character arc in episode 7 that probably stole the season just from under everybody. And then in season 8, we got to see fucking Luke Skywalker in his prime.
Yeah. And something you guys didn't bring up in that show that I really wanted to just very shortly add is that scene when he comes in is almost a reflection of Darth Vader cutting through that that hallway in Rogue One, and I loved it. It was so good. It was great.
Well, Rogue One is probably the only Disney movie that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
That they produced, and I know it's not like we knew everything that was going to happen, but I still enjoyed it because it felt like old Star Wars to me.
Yeah. See, you touch on basically. I will say, Force Awakens, when I saw it, not after, but when I saw it, that is the movie that made me feel like a kid watching Star Wars for the first time again. Like that like level of excitement and everything, that felt amazing. After the fact, I saw how empty it was. Mandalorian, and then like Mandalorian made it so, how do I say it? And Mandalorian did the same thing, but it had substance. It had substance that lasted and continued throughout the show. Whereas The Force Awakens was sort of on the surface level, like, oh my god, this feels amazing, and then after, like, oh, it's shit. There's so much garbage in this, and it's a copy of you know, A New Hope.
So guys, I want to move on to these. I want to do these next ones together because I think they both, they are fucking fantastic, and also like what they represent politically in the industry, very important too. I May Destroy You, Michaela Cole, and Lovecraft, which was put together by Misha Green. So like these shows, I mean, I believe this was probably one of the most important years for female showrunners and like female creators, just in terms of like the streaming ecosystem. Like when you consider these shows, I mean, from a higher level, I mean, Michaela Cole dismissed, a $1 million Netflix offer because they refused to give her any portion of the copyright. She did a series, which I believe is Chewing Gum, if I remember correctly, which was great. It was a lot more comedic, but she's so talented. She moves really well in that space. they refused to give her any part of the copyright, and she was trying to get 5%, and then she was like, okay, what about 0.5%, like a spot at the high level production table, and that wasn't something they would give her. And then she, which is ludicrously sexist, because like she's the creator and the writer, you know what I mean, and the head actor.
Yeah.
I mean, on a show like that, usually, I mean, either actor, even if they aren't the creator, will get a production credit. So I mean, like HBO and it was the BBC. They jumped on it, and they were like, "We'll give you whatever you want. Like, we see the quality here, and we see how we see you and how good you are." And then HBO jumps on as the US distributor and as a co-production, and it was just a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fucking beautifully put together.
Yeah, it's really good. I haven't finished the show yet because I'm still doing a little bit of catch up, but from everything I've seen so far, it's a very hard hitting show. It's a very real show. You know what I mean? Just by saying that, it feels so real and raw, and dark and funny and sad all at the same time. I've been very impressed so far, and it baffles me that we're still having these kinds of discussion about these talented women in our business and how they're not getting the opportunities at certain places that they should be. Because I mean, like I said, the only thing that matters is that it's fucking good at the end of the day, and she's killing it with this show. It's fucking really good.
Boy, and I want to talk to you because and for those of you, I mean, who follow the show or who want to learn more about I May Destroy You, if you haven't seen it, or even if you had, Coburn Blair from the Rhythm Section fame and the very talented Sajay Elder, writer for a number of friggin' magazines, including Fader. We did a whole breakdown of it, and it was just talking about like intersectionality and how like it's used as like not just something they talk about. It's not even talked about. It's like they use it as in ironic ways to express how the characters don't understand necessarily what each other are going through, and then kind of looking at that. So I thought that was really, really great how it was put together. Boyan, I know you were on the Lovecraft Country pod. I mean, like this series, especially with what Misha Green was able to do with it, I mean, very important because and also it's horror. I mean, we loved it, obviously.
I mean, I loved it for it's just bold creativity and storytelling. Like there's nothing else quite like it. It takes risks, it takes chances. It manages to be so many things, and it gets a little. Its downside is it can get a little lost in how much it's trying to accomplish, like a little bit out of focus in its storytelling because it's trying to do so many things, and you get a little whiplash back and forth. And I think we commented about it when we talked about it in the podcast before. But I still, despite all that, I appreciate that it continuously tries to do new things and tries to tell stories in a different way and do completely unexpected things. And it does so with a great cast, with a really incredible themes and settings, and it shows history through this lens that it's refreshing to see. It's refreshing to see it. It manages, it's sci-fi and fantasy while being honest about what that aspect of the American history was like, in a way that doesn't feel like it's a whitewashed retelling. It's not. There's so many shows, so many movies that have taken on those periods that still find a way to be like, oh, how do we have a white guy in here that's also like the hero, or how do we humanize this racist or something like that, so in terms of the history it tells, it's so honest and so raw, but all the other elements just make it incredible to watch, and I'm looking forward to it. I really hope it continues along that path, but I hope it finds a little bit more focus in what it wants to tell and not try and go all over the place.
I think that's first time showrunner. I think that is, I mean, because John was also, I mean, we were talking about it before.
She probably has a lot of stories she wants to tell, right?
Yeah, and it's also kind of an
this is a
expansive
chance to tell them, and it's like, I want to tell all of them. So I think with some confidence and security, like more. I mean, I'm sure she's confident. They can't run a show like that without having the confidence to run it. But I think with more experience and time on this, we're going to see incredible things from her.
Because I know, John, you've been enjoying it as well.
I have loved every second of it so far, and you know, I'm also a big fantasy horror guy as well. So I mean, I guess I'll see where it goes. I've got up until episode 4 as of right now, and I'm really digging it. So, but I seem to, even after the 3 episodes, I specifically around episode 3 is when I started to have that same feeling, Boyan, about it sort of being a little all over the place, like you were saying, just as far as its focus, but it's really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to finishing it.
Also, Journey Smollett, for me, it's Anna Taylor-Joy, Michaela Cole, Journey Smollett, and probably Jonathan Majors, who's in it. He's also in Defy Bloods. I think, like, are the ones who are going to come out this year, just like, I mean, Jonathan Majors, it's already kind of happened, but Journey Smollett, Anna Taylor-Joy, and Michaela Cole are like, they're the ones who were really propelled this year, and you know what I mean. And I feel like in the 2 years previous, it was like the Phoebe Waller-Bridge as well was another one who just like got, you know, rocketed into the spotlight just because of like opportunity, really deftly chosen opportunities to put out good work at like good networks, and networks being open to it, right? Which is funny because it's like there's Queen's Gambit with Netflix, but then on the other hand, they also like kind of mess up the relationship with Michaela Cole. So it's an interesting how that ecosystem kind of all comes together. I want to move on to, you know, the last one here, number 5, The Last Dance. Like John and I are like rabid sports fans. I'm a huge fucking basketball fan, and like sports just got cut down. And listen, stopping the sports, absolutely agree with it. I mean, obviously we were saying at the time, like, of course they shouldn't be playing basketball. There's a global fucking pandemic. Okay. With that said, if we said when hockey and basketball came back that we weren't a fan of that would also be a lie. Yeah. So what we used to kind of pacify ourselves was The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, the one of the big sports events of the, you know, especially the first part of the year. Boy, did you get a chance to take a look at this? Like, I'm curious
this is one of those things where my dad's a big sports guy and a basketball fan. So I tried to be like, hey, let's watch this together, because at least when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of the Bulls, huge fan of Michael Jordan. I mean, which kid wasn't? So I tried to find time to watch it with him, and we didn't find time yet, despite the pandemic. So I didn't get to see it, but it's definitely on the list, and it's
I can't even believe it was on the list. Boyan Boyan is not the sports guy. He just kind of looks at us melt down.
Yeah,
your dad should get on the basketball.
The aspect that gets that why it's on the list for me is just childhood nostalgia. Like I said, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Rodman, like. Of the sports names I know, like I cannot forget those names. Like I remember watching as a kid when they played the Yugoslavian team when it was like with the international games. Space Jam. Like it's something I grew up with before I figured out I'm not really a fan of sports. I definitely want to watch it. And I hope you can touch on, I don't know how much you know about sort of the controversy. I think it was Pippen refused to be on it, right? There was something about basically he refused to be on it because he said it was going to be a puff piece for Michael Jordan.
No, that was
No.
Carl. That was Carl Malone.
That was Carl
Malone. Okay. No,
Yo,
yeah.
fucking Scottie Pippen was heavy in this. I knew it'd be interesting. We brought up, so I'm like, has Boyan seen this? This guy doesn't like sports. By the way, you should like basketball because Serbians are fucking good at it. Okay,
Yeah, no.
Jokic was just fucking is
I know.
lighting shit up. He's
they're
fucking
great.
good. This guy's got more dish than fucking Denny's.
For a country of less than 10 million people, we seem to produce a lot of really great basketball players. So
Yeah, because you get these guys who are 9 feet tall and can pass. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. And then you have Luka Doncic, who's fucking fantastic. Like, they were just lighting it up. Okay, so, like, for me, like, The Last Dance, like, was, like, the salve. You know what I mean? Like, it really kind of got us through, especially the dark periods at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, like, John, like, what did this documentary coming out mean for you in the, in the absence of, sports, really for the first time in a while?
Well, they say timing is everything when it comes to art, and the timing of this release could not have been better, just because we were all inside with nothing to do but to fucking watch it and then just talk about it. So, I mean, well, we talked about it. We were all binging it, messaging each other about it when it came out. We did a podcast about it.
And the memes
and the memes, obviously, and of course, the best part of anything basketball related specifically is there's so much discussion after something happens. Whether it's this documentary, and there was a ton of talk about the Karl Malone thing. There was a lot of talk about how Scottie Pippen felt like it made him look a little sour. There was Ken Burns coming out talking shit about it not being a legitimate documentary because it was produced by Michael Jordan. Like, so there was a ton of shit to talk about even after it came out.
I turned on Ken Burns real fast.
Yeah,
I love Ken Burns. I love Ken Burns. I'm like, guys, have you seen all 9 hours of Jazz?
Yeah.
I've seen it 100. I'm like, I've seen it 100 times. Then immediately he's like, this isn't a real documentary. I'm like, fuck you, Ken Burns. No one gives a shit about you or baseball. Meanwhile, it's incredible.
But anyway,
yeah.
so the thing about this for me was, obviously everyone's familiar with the Bulls. Everyone's familiar with Michael Jordan and the main characters in that whole thing: Pippen, Rodman, Phil Jackson, even the side characters like Steve Kerr and a smattering of others. But the big thing that this documentary, at least for me, that made it so cool was just the access that, just like we talked about in the podcast we did about this, was just how they literally had a camera crew following them around for an entire season, in the locker room, during practice, on the court, going through literally, their last dance, in quotations. And just for that access alone, it's incredible. Like I love a good sports documentary, obviously, but like, This was on like a whole other level. This is 8 parts? It's an 8-part series.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just insane how much access they had to everybody. Jordan and his security guards playing fucking, gambling all the time and fucking playing, what was it, quarters they were playing?
Yeah,
in between like intermissions and shit.
And he's losing at quarters.
I love it. He's so pissed.
It's
and
fucking
shit.
Michael Jordan.
It's just
did he fire some security guards?
Yeah. He fucking loved those guys. Like they like those guys. Like he was like helping them out financially and stuff like just like because you start to develop relationships. I think what it really did too overall is up the level. I'm like, in terms of my favorite sports documentaries, I mean, I love the 30 series.
Yeah.
OJ Made in America, the 6-part documentary,
Mm-hmm.
done through ESPN, is probably, I think, one of the best. One of my favorite. This is up there with one of my favorite. It's not the hard-hitting journalistic style, or that one is, but this one, like, my whole reaction to Ken Burns is one of my favorite filmmakers. I love Ken Burns, but it's like, everyone knows none of this stuff is new. Okay, no. What this is just telling the story and laying it out, and the interviews were fucking fantastic.
Yes.
Like it was a really enjoyable experience, and I don't think every single thing you do, like it's a spotlight on Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan doesn't look good throughout long stretches of this.
Yeah. It really does lay him quite bare in this, to be honest with you.
But for this really upped the level of sports documentary, and I think if you're gonna look at sports documentaries as a whole, this really kind of took it to a different, like almost like pop art situation, because it's like so, like you're just loving, it's like popcorn. You're just like it's a popcorn doc.
Yeah.
And I just really fucking enjoyed it.
It was also just really well put together. Like as far as just the editing, the use of footage and the interviews, everything was just really, really, really well done. And you really kind of got to see the inner workings of the team in this documentary. Like you really got to grow. Like if you didn't know anything about basketball and you just put this on, this would take you from point A to point Z as far as where they go. And there would be a very clear arc for everybody to take in the span of the documentary. And yeah, like, I mean, it was just really well done. And there was just a lot there for everybody, sports fans alike and for non-sports fans.
So what I kind of want to do here is, we've kind of gone through what we feel the most important shows of this year are, and just kind of what their impact to the to the industry and to the art form, the culture of series and all that kind of all that good stuff. What are we looking forward to in 2021? Like what coming up this year now, as we are just a week in? What are we looking forward to?
Most of the shows I'm looking forward to are the ones that are, that already are just going to be doing another season. Like The Witcher, Mandalorian, all that stuff. But the one sort of original show that's really piqued my interest is WandaVision. I think we've covered it before. I was a big fan of Legion. I've been preaching the word of Legion to anyone who was within distance of me when people could be within distance, and I really think it's a incredible show, and I love shows that mess with your head and just you don't are completely off the wall like that. And I think WandaVision, at least in terms of its flavor, in terms of what's been shown about it, it definitely touches on that same sort of feeling of sort of mind fucking the audience. So I'm curious what that's going to be like, and that could also be, hopefully, I think Disney's probably hoping it could be something like Mandalorian, where it's so good that it makes you feel possibly hopeful about maybe all these other superhero shows that are coming out won't be shit. Because that's another aspect that's reaching a saturation point, and The Boys is also an answer to that saturation point, where you're so sick and tired of superheroes that you start poking holes into those worlds, and The Boys is an answer to that. But yeah, WandaVision, I would say, is what I'm looking forward to sort of immediately in 2021, and hoping that it does something for that superhero Marvel side that's interesting and creative.
Boy, and you also expressed interest in Mortal Kombat.
No, I was reading a list, and look, the old movies are like a guilty pleasure watch. Like, they're horrible. And
the second one is unwatchable. The first one I'll watch.
They're both unwatchable, but like it's one of those things where it has several drinks down, I can watch it and laugh at it. But God, I don't know what that series is going to be like, and it can't be good because none of those characters have ever had any depth. So I don't know how it can be good at all. So we'll see. But yeah, that's so far 2021 for me. I mean, other than whatever's going to repeat from all these other shows that we mentioned, and some of the others that I watch sort of continuously. And I'm watching already the first show that I was last night. I did a binge of the 6 episodes of The Expanse that were available, and they're very long episodes, so I was up really late. And the show just gets better every year, and the performances in it are incredible, and I think it's some of the best sci-fi out right now. So I highly recommend that and I'm jealous of anybody that starts that show from the first episode.
Well, I think for me, it's got to be, obviously the number one thing I'm looking forward to isn't a show, but the number one thing I'm looking forward to is Dune in 2021, assuming that we can go to a theater and see it the way it's supposed to be seen. But show wise, yes, finally, I can't wait for Star Wars to come out. I'm super pumped to see what they do with Boba. I'm super pumped to see what they do with Ahsoka. And I really, really would like to see what they're going to do with Mando. But season 3 of The Boys as well. And also season 2 of The Righteous Gemstones, if they ever release it on HBO. Because I think season 1 was released in late 2019. So it's been almost a year and a half since the release of season 1. So they're due for a second season probably this year.
I'm going to talk about mine, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and we're going to get into a little bit about this Warner situation moving forward to wrap it up. So for me, Succession, season 2 is season 3. Is it season 2 or season 3? Season 3 is season 3 is the big one. That's the one I'm waiting for. I love that show. I think it's the best show on TV right now. It's definitely my favorite show on TV right now. So I'm totally looking forward to it. The cast is fantastic. Every fucking fantastic. Book of Boba Fett, I'm really looking forward to that. Season 2 Righteous Gemstones as well. Generally anything with John Goodman is fantastic.
Yeah.
Barry Jenkins, who is just like if you found out there was an alien race and they were invading us and they could only be destroyed by talent, you would and you just ignited him in front of them, they would all be vaporized. He is fucking super talented, and he's doing a series, The Underground Railroad, and I just think that his work in historical, like, he's just so talented, and like him adding his hand to series again, going limited series. I'm really excited to see what that's going to be. It's going to be epic. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be like a viewing event. So I want to just to finish up, guys, I want to talk about just like, because John talked about Dune, and it's a really big thing that's going to affect the industry. And I think like they can try to be like, oh no, we're only going to do this once. I mean, like, okay, if it works, you're going to do it again. You know what I mean? Like, so what do we think about Warner Brothers and just this releasing because we haven't talked about it on the show yet, and the releasing of the of their 2021 slate streaming?
I mean, I understand it as far as why they're doing it. But my only worry is that this is the way that it goes from now on, and theaters will be slowly. This is the tipping point where theaters slowly start to fade away. That's my only gripe about it, and I'm hoping that at least there's still a substantial portion of the audience that views the theater experience as special and as a unique and awesome way to see a film. But I mean, I can't sit here and say that it's not a good idea to release this stuff on a streaming service, because I mean, even just for families, COVID aside, the amount they want for tickets these days is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And for a family of 4 to go see a movie at Cineplex is like, I mean, it's a bit much. That's my only concern. Is just that the theaters are going to start to fade away.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's these big companies are not the type to invest a lot of money into doing something like this and then a year later not continue to do it. That's an expensive proposition to just do this thing for like 1 or 2 years and then go back to the old system. Usually when they evolve in some way or change how they operate, they tend to stick with it as long as it's working for them. And man, if that's the case, it's good. That's gonna suck. Like, I enjoy watching quite a lot of stuff at home, but there's just no replacement with some movies, not all of them, but with some movies,
Yeah.
there's just no replacement for the big. Like the Dune is going to be really shitty for me if I can't see it on the big screen.
You have to see it on a big like.
You have to. You have to.
There's
There is
something
no-
about making these epics that has to, I don't know if it's some like, you know, Lawrence of Arabia maybe created this effect where, you know, if you're going to have an epic story, you got to have, you know, that Panavision, that like those massive vista shots and all that stuff. Yeah, if you're going to do a movie like that, it feels it really has to be on a very big screen, and no TV can ever, and big sound, and no TV can ever replicate that. And there's so many aspects of it that can't be replicated. And
sorry, Boyan, but like the big difference for me, at least as far as watching something at home and watching something in the theater, is it transports you to another place when you're watching it in a theater. Like when you sit down to watch Dune in a theater, you're going to be on Arrakis when you're fucking watching that in the theater. Like that's the whole appeal of films in the theater to me, is it transports you to another place in a different environment, just sitting there watching it on this massive screen with this big sound system. It's just a whole other thing. Now watching it at home is perfectly fine. And I think the series stuff lends itself more to that because it becomes more about sort of the story and the characters, where a film is that as well, but it's more about the spectacle and experience as another element to that. Continue, Boyan. I'm sorry I jumped in there.
No, 100%. We're both sort of on the same page there. And on top of that, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a whole aspect of the business that's gone. And I mean, we all just become, there's no more film. I mean, there's no more really like we're just TV filmmakers from this point on. All the people that are making movies are really just TV movies at this point. With a bigger budget. So like what is, that is kind of the line that separates the two. And if that doesn't exist anymore, I don't know if I like that being fully replaced.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on it. When I talk to my and we're talking beyond just COVID. Like
Yes.
Warner's doing this. You can't indefinitely keep pushing your movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's at some point where, you know what I mean? Especially for some of these filmmakers, like Shaka King and like Judas and the Black Messiah. Like he's a first-time filmmaker. He needs to get that out there. Like you can't be it's very important for some people's careers moving forward. Mm. And you can't just do it indefinitely, and so this makes sense. But beyond it, when I was like, I come from a fairly movie obsessed family, and what my grandparents used to do when they were kids was they were fucking really poor, but they always had like a quarter to go to the movie all afternoon. You know what I mean? Or something like that, like, or 50 cents, or like they give them $1 and they go get like lunch and like see a movie.
Let's go watch the pictures.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And like they would see things like, like On the Waterfront and all that kind of stuff. And also like the popcorn movies, which are just, like Errol Flynn movies and all that kind of stuff. And I think that the family who doesn't have a lot of money, especially with economic situation and like the difference between the gap between rich and poor and all this kind of stuff, it's like you can't, if 4 of you are going out to a movie and you go out and want popcorn and a drink, that's like $80.
Oh yeah,
$90.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's pretty generous.
The experience,
and that is
the experience you talked
more.
about your grandparents, like that doesn't exist anymore. Even if you are better off, like it's still not something like you're just gonna go on a whim and spend $20 to $40, even if you're just going by yourself or if you're going with a friend or family. Like it's gotten so pricey that it's not just, you can't just do it as a casual thing. It has to be a planned sort of night sort of thing.
Yeah, so like that to me is, it's like cheaper to order a pizza and like watch movies all night, you know what I mean, or like watch a show all night and do all this kind of stuff than like go out and do like popcorns and drinks at movies. So like that's an area where I'm like, okay, I think the film industry, like the music industry, didn't do themselves any favors when new technology came in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They didn't realize, they thought they were the only game in town, and now they're realizing that's not the case because they don't own the movie theaters.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, a business decision for these studios is for massive vertical integration where they own all parts of the means of production and distribution, right? They want it to be one company. And so like for them, streaming offers that opportunity, and they don't have to pay major venue fees and like screening fees to have them in theaters across the country. I think but at the same time, it's like, you know, what if I saw Jurassic Park on a fucking like streaming for the first time when I was a kid? You know what I mean? Like, you can't. You're denying someone an art form, and I fear that what's going to happen is it's going to go to ultra limited release. It's going to be super expensive to go see a movie in a movie theater, and then when as generations of filmmakers pass away, it'll just like completely be gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like one thing about music is like you can't take away the live performance.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like in terms of like a long-term situation, because I mean, live music has existed the entire time music has existed. You know what I mean? Like it was live music. So I worry about that because like I think you also lose like the cultural impact of those things as well.
Yeah,
you know
those experiences make the next generation of filmmakers that wanna. You see something big on a screen, you want to be like, you want to make a film on that screen as well. If that's gone, that's not that generational sort of evolution is gone.
Yeah, if I saw Fellowship of the Ring on Netflix, I don't think it would have had a tenth of the impact that it had.
No, how are you gonna do that? Like Dune, like I will watch Dune. Like, okay, I mean, how my tastes work, I would watch Dune the first time I'm seeing it on a TV, but I have to see it on a big screen. You know what I mean? Like I have to see what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I have to see what that is and enjoy the whole fucking, you know, situation of it. And like, I think the big thing we're going to be looking at in 2021, especially from a media standpoint, like a content creation standpoint, is what is the impact of that?
I don't think you can truly appreciate a film until you've seen it on the big screen. And much like how you can't truly appreciate a band unless you've seen them live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
It's almost the same parallel. Like,
it depends on the film, it depends on the band. There's a
fair
lot
enough,
of films that don't deserve the big screen.
Fair enough.
I don't need to see Skrillex live.
But like
P.S.
a good
Skrillex
example would be when we went to see the final cut of Blade Runner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't feel like I truly saw that film for the first time until we saw it.
100%.
No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Like 100%.
Is because it had a completely different experience.
Like all the people who saw Lawrence of Arabia. Yes. Yeah.
And Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, like all the people who saw Lawrence of Arabia. Like my grandfather saw that in the fucking theater, and he's like talking to me. He's like, this fucking ignoramus hasn't even seen it on a big screen. He's trying to tell me what it is. Fucking CinemaScope and shit.
He doesn't know anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know fucking shit. And you know what? My grandfather's wrong about a lot of things. Love him. But he's definitely not wrong about that. I can go fuck myself.
You know, I know we're going a little long, but so the last comment on what it's really sad. I mean, not film-wise, what's sad. I mean, there's sadder things in the world right now, but film-wise, what's sad about, the pandemic is we were seeing a good like upswing in just culturally in people being interested in going out and seeing older movies on the big screen. You know, people like what we're talking about, movies that we saw on the TV when we were kids because they came out long before we were born, and then now we go to TIFF or whatever, and we go see them on the big screen, and it's a whole different experience. And that was becoming, at least here in Toronto, that was becoming a more and more a popular thing, whereas even the mainstream sort of cineplexes and whatnot were doing it. And I really hope that after the pandemic that can continue, because that will lead to at least some survival and revival of watching movies on in the cinema.
Shout out Cinesphere, man.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to go
Same.
back to the Cinesphere and rewatch some old movies again.
Yeah,
100%.
even that jumbled mass of a film, Tenet.
No.
P.S. Listen to our review of Tenet. I was like, I'm glad I saw that on the big screen. I mean, to close, I will just say that the thing I do like about it is the potential of it reviving like the smaller or mid-range feature.
100%.
Because that has been sorely lacking, because that's where usually the creativity lies.
And that's where the limited series feel like. They feel like a
yes,
revival.
you know what? That's a really
mid-tier.
good point, Boyan. Yeah, it feels like the things that you would have got from that mid-tier 8 million to 50, like 100 million. Like, it's so funny that it's 100 million now, but it would normally
It was
be
like
like
30,
8 million to
40.
50.
Wasn't it like 30,
Yeah,
40? Yeah.
It's like 8 million to 50 million
Yeah.
is the and you lose out on that. And so I think that's a really good point. So guys, we are running mad long. I just want to say thank you for a fantastic year. Thank you for doing the year-end roundup.
Yeah. Anytime.
Everyone, I hope you have a good 2021. I know it started off in an interesting fashion. Let's be cool. Anyways, I'll talk to you soon, guys.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Ciao.